At 6 o'clock, hello, good evening, and welcome to Newsnight.
Our COVID-19 treatment centers have gone from having 0 patients to now being 4. Ghana Health Service is recording on the average 200 new cases of COVID infections daily.
And coming up in the next 60 minutes, retired Supreme Court Judge William Atuguba, who presided over the panel that heard the 2013 election petition, asks all sides involved in this year's petition to be guided by the supreme interest of the nation.
Anybody involved in that process should remember that it is an exercise in the interests of justice, in the interests of Ghana. These are only 2 things.
We'll also hear from the Metropolitan Archbishop for Cape Coast, Charles Palmer-Bakil, who is speaking against undue criticism, saying it could hamper the work of the Supreme Court.
Also in this edition of Newsnight, Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, warns against full lockdown being proposed by health experts following a surge in COVID cases, saying it will slow down the economy.
If we should go into a lockdown, it's just certainly going to slow down economic activity. Our growth projections will certainly come down because there's not much production. That is also likely to affect employment.
We'll hear from him. Plus, are you still not wearing a mask?
It's not easy. We are also breaking our backs. So please, Ghana, let's try and max up.
A frontline health worker who's seen many endure the excruciating disease tells us why it could help save your life.
Also here on Newsnight, as Parliament Appointments Committee prepares to vet the President's ministerial nominees, Pressure Group ASEPA and Men's Gold customers have petitioned the committee against the nomination of Ken Oforiatta as Finance Minister. We have details.
Also coming up in business, customs officials on high alert at all ports to reduce the surge in COVID-19 cases.
The Ghana defender Baba Abdulrahman set to join Greek club PAOK from Chelsea. More on this later in sports.
And much later here on Newsnight, former Speaker of Parliament Edward Doajao reveals late Jerry John Rawlings was unhappy with some development after handing over power to John Kufuor. But what were the issues?
He invited me to his house and went around the vehicles and said, is this a bulletproof car?
As Ghana prepares to send the former president home tomorrow, you can join us with your views and comments here on Newsnight on our WhatsApp console at 055-1111-997. We're also streaming on Facebook. You can leave your comments there. My name is Ernest Manu.
And I am Araba Koomson.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we begin with a very familiar pronouncement. Remember this?
Thank you. Now, we've given you full opportunity to demonstrate how mighty you are, and we hope you've done so.
My lords,
Do you now realize your real size in this country?
Yes, my lords.
Good.
So
I hope you know your size.
I know my size, Ernest. So, Ernest, that was Supreme Court Judge Justice William Atuguba in 2013, rebuking then National Youth Organizer of the NPP, Sami Ewuku, during the election petition then. Well, today he's retired, but he's been following the 2020 election petition, and he's cautioning all parties in the election petition to be guided by the supreme interest of the nation. He spoke to my colleague, Elton Drobe.
It is the people who own the country and its resources, and the people they put into power. If we remember this and always keep steadfast to these principles, Ghana is so well endowed in terms of natural and human resources over and above several other countries in Africa. We would have been soaring more and more and more and more.
You presided over the election petition in 2013. Yes. There's one ongoing right now. Have you been monitoring, and what's your advice for lawyers and then the panel?
Well, I did not think I'm in position to advise the panel. That can be a delicate matter. You know, I myself had caused some people for contempt. I'm not above the law, and I ought to set a good example. So it will be difficult to talk in that direction. However, generally, You see, anybody involved in that process should remember that it is an exercise in the interest of justice, in the interest of Ghana. These are the only two things. And whether you are a lawyer or whatever, if you look only at that and allow your conscience and the fear of God to direct you and pray for the graces of God to take control, things will be fine for everybody. When the outcome comes, everybody will be happy.
So, are you okay with the process, how it's going?
Well, that's why I say that's a delicate area. What can I say? What we have to remember is that law is not like mathematics, which has infrangible answers, uninfrangible answers. 1 + 1 is always 2. 3 times 3 is 9. That is straight jacket, equation. But when you come to the application of law, it's a bit nebulous. It's jurisprudential. So many principles come to play, broad principles of jurisprudence, the letter of the law, all those things. So it's not an easy thing. However, much of it can be simplified if one fixes one's mind on trying to ascertain in the interest of this country what the real justice of the matter should be, whether you are a lawyer or whatnot. This is what I understand about the administration of justice.
And so that is a former Supreme Court Judge, Justice William Atukuba, that you don't always get them to speak to you and, of course, admonishing us. But he's not the only one who's been speaking.
Indeed, he's not the only one, Ernest. Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast, Archbishop Charles Palmer Buckle, has also been speaking against undue criticism that he says may hamper the work of the Supreme Court. He says the institution must be allowed to do its work and its decision respected in the end. He's been speaking to my colleague, Gifty Ando-Apia.
It's over and done with. Let's move on with government and let's move on with the court case and let the court decide. That is for me. The elections are done and let's see what the courts will come up with. Finished. Do you understand? I think we should respect the institution of the judiciary and let the judiciary deal with the issue. Period. If we don't empower the institutions to do their work, we are always going to be in difficulty. I mean, look at what happened in America. Look at how powerful the institution has been. Look at how powerful the Congress has been. Look at how powerful, So that's where we are at. Let the institutions do what must be done. The executive, the legislature, and especially the judiciary. Let's respect them. That's the bottom line. Let's respect the people we have put in place and let them deal with the issues. For me, that is where the bottom line is.
So, Ernest, that's Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast, Palmer Buckle, right there. But let's move to Parliament now, because tonight there's pressure piling on its Appointments Committee to reject the nomination of Ken Ofori-Atta as Finance Minister when he appears for vetting. The Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, the Coalition of Aggrieved Customers of Men's Gold, and the Coalition of Aggrieved Savings and Loans Customers are petitioning the committee against Ken Ofori-Atta's nomination on the grounds of what they say is incompetence. Listen to Executive Director of ASEPA, Mensa Thompson.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our contention that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, between the period of 2017 and 2021, when he was Finance Minister, acted in ways and manners that violated the Public Financial Management Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, the Public Procurement Law, Act 914, the Financial Administration Act, Act 654, the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, and other several misconduct which we have explained in our petition.
Mr. Thompson further accused the finance minister designate of his inability to settle majority of the customers of some collapsed financial institutions.
Ladies and gentlemen, later last year, the finance minister, his deputy, and even the president engaged in a false claim that over 98% of all these customers of financial institutions have been duly settled, when in actual fact, only a paltry 18% has been settled any form of claim. This has led to a number of them losing their lives. Some of them, their marriages collapsed, and a number of them have lost their homes and their entire livelihood.
And so that's the executive director of ASEPA, Mensah Thompson. Let's go into the phone lines now and speak to spokesperson for the Coalition of Aggrieved Customers of Men's Gold, Fred Forson. Mr. Forson, we're grateful you could join us. First of all, help us understand, how is it that you are against the nomination of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta? Did he make any promises to you that he did not fulfill?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, we are against his nomination and even further asking that on the day of its vetting, if he should step Parliament, we are calling on the Marshal to arrest him and charge him for manslaughter.
Mr. Forson, kindly speak up for me, please. Your line is a bit low.
What we are saying is that if he makes the mistake and even steps in Parliament on the day for his vetting, the Marshals of Parliament should arrest him and charge him for manslaughter.
But I'm sorry, Mr. Forson. The Marshals of Parliament do not have that mandate to charge anybody in the first place. And if there should be
the background, unless you allow me to proceed before you understand where I'm coming from.
If you can quickly make the point.
Yes. So what you are saying is that Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, the Ministry of Finance, he is the head and he is responsible for whatever happens, and is responsible for the activities of the various agencies under the ministry, i.e., and in our case, the Security and Exchange Commission came and shut down Men's Gold in 2018. Several appeals, and in the face of the law, the Act 929, that we were expecting him to have acted upon to ensure that the customers of Men's Gold whose investments were locked up could be catered for. Several petitions, several appeals to him fell on deaf ears, and he even went further in the public space to call us names, and his actions and inactions led to the death of over 80 customers of Men's Gold. It's on that basis that we are saying that he's incompetent, and such a man is a very dangerous man that we should never ever allow.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Forson. You're claiming that he mentioned names of who exactly?
Come again?
You're accusing the finance minister of mentioning names publicly. I didn't get the context of that claim you're making.
He called us names.
He called you names. People. Okay.
Yes, he said that we are greedy people. And in 2019,
and why did he make this claim? Why did he make this claim?
Come again?
Why did he say this?
It's in the public domain. I mean, you can Google and find it. I'm giving you further evidence. After the 2019 SONA, he went with the president to Burma camp, and the soldiers there who are also victims of Men's Gold. Our finance minister promised that he was going to set up asset recovery committee to ensure that all the assets of NAM1 are confiscated and the items over there are going to be sold and whatever, and ensure that we are paid. From 2019 to 2021, this man has done nothing, and we don't think that he is worthy to go near the finances of this nation, and therefore Parliament must reject him. That's what we are saying. We don't even believe that he is responsible enough to be giving the finances of this nation to handle again. And so we are saying that Parliament should reject him, and we do not even expect him even to step in Parliament for vetting. He is not worthy. He doesn't even deserve the post, because we cannot have a finance minister who can act so recklessly, and after his actions and actions of an agency under his ministry, he, instead of working to ensure that we retrieve our money, he comes to the public domain and calls us names and ridicule us, and out of his word, because of his pronouncement, these things went into affecting the lives of many people who are dead, Many people lost their investment. Many people have lost their education. Many marriages have been broken, and we don't deserve that. The President of the Republic should name such a man to be the finance minister of the Republic of Ghana.
Mr. Foster, I want to thank you for your time here on Newsnight.
The people's representative to reject him outrightly.
Very well. Thank you for speaking to us here on Newsnight. That's a spokesperson for the Coalition of Aggrieved Customers of Men's Gold. We're working the lines once we get a SEPA on the line because they have described him as incompetent. We'll find out exactly how they mean and why they think that he should not be approved as finance minister.
But Ernest, let's still stay on Men's Gold because the lawyer of some of the customers of Men's Gold has petitioned the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, to assist in the passage of a legislation to address Ponzi or pyramid schemes in Ghana. Amanda Clinton also wants the Finance Committee to work towards retrieving millions of Ghana cedis owed her clients who invested in the defunct company. Directors of Men's Gold, as you know, are facing criminal charges after the funds of their customers got locked up. Madam Clinton has described the company as one which ran a Ponzi scheme. My colleague Kweku Asante has details of her petition and he joins me in the studio with it. Kweku, Madam Clinton writes about two things. Give us the details.
Right. So, in this petition from the Clintons to the Speaker of Parliament, Miss Clinton makes the point that there's a rising case on the rising trend in Ponzi schemes in Ghana, and that they are warning government that such institutions and the warnings that are coming from government are not enough to stem the tide. And so government must do enough. And so they are saying, for instance, that the Parliament, through its Finance Committee, must work with the Attorney General to seize and liquidate more assets of Nana Appiah Mensah to pay Men's Good customers. And they allege in the petition that of all the charges that have been leveled against Nana Appiah Mensah, he's still working a free man, and the case has suffered several adjournments over a 1 year period. And so they are saying that Parliament must also work with the Attorney General to enact legislations to deal with such Ponzi schemes so that these cases of Men's Good and other things do not keep rising.
All right, many thanks, Kweku Asante there. Thankfully, Amanda Clinton joins us on the line now. Madam Clinton, thank you so much for your time. We know how much effort you've put into, trying to retrieve millions of Ghana cedis owed your clients. But why Parliament at this time?
Why Parliament at this time is because, as we know, the Attorney General has a host of effective mechanisms. They can seek injunctions, they can make international requests, they can cull assets as well as trace assets internationally. And we know this in part because of the Wyoming case, where we saw Deputy Attorney General Dami, even assets that have been disposed of in different people's names, he was able to cull back. And so it's quite amazing that in the case of Men's Gold, we haven't seen, international traces very much. We haven't seen a long time passed before injunctions got put on the bank accounts. And so if it's a case that government is picking and choosing when it's going to trace assets, when it's going to be aggressive, when it's going to choose to say it's in the public interest, Parliament can intervene by passing or working with the Attorney General to pass legislature that is very geared towards Ponzi schemes. Because in Ghana right now, what we're seeing is 20 years of Ponzi schemes, and SEC have even done a PowerPoint on this. Not one person in this country has successfully been prosecuted for Ponzi scheme. And that's from, I think, the head of research at SEC. He has a PowerPoint that's available online. And what we're ultimately seeing is poor coordination and cooperation amongst financial regulators, lack of willingness to investigate and prosecute, as well as an unwillingness by some government departments to address financial misconduct. And so if, for instance, Parliament pushes this issue in the public interest, they may start working with the Attorney General to just highlight that this is very much a public interest matter, whether people are regulated or unregulated, because you've got a lot of people. And so if government can argue public interest, for instance, for the GFA case, where they froze accounts and earmarked buildings, and they did that within 24 hours, why did it take them 4 months to freeze accounts? And none of us know the extent to which they've done an international trade.
Which is
So they
why
can't
I'm
pick and
wondering
choose
why
public interest.
you think that Parliament should legislate necessarily against this when you cite the example of how the Attorney General's Department, for instance, has put in so much effort in retrieving monies that Woyome, took from the state. Wouldn't you rather ask Parliament, the Finance Committee, for instance, or Parliament as a body to hold before the House, the Attorney General, and to find out processes or steps they have taken as far as this case is concerned? And you know that this is in court, by the way.
Yes, I know, but as you know, it is in court. So I am suing certain government departments on this. So I can't comment too much on that. The reason we wrote the petition is the way forward. And, as lawyers, we tend to be a bit more diplomatic in terms of, we write a petition and the inference can be drawn. But as you can see from page 1 of my petition, I specifically say that Parliament was deliberating on this in December 2018, particularly with the Finance Committee. And then I highlight all the steps that, government departments have missed and how for over a year, they've continuously adjourned. So the petition is written in a way for Parliament to take action as it sees fit, whilst also heavily suggesting things like legislation, sensitization, and one of the points I mentioned is that they should work with the Attorney Generals to retrieve the assets. When the Finance Committee in Parliament gets this document, hopefully they will, because it's been distributed to the heads of both, the minority and the majority. It is for them to take action on this. And so, yes, as you can see with this 6-page document, there is a lot of inferences that can be drawn as to the steps that have been missed. And perhaps, the Attorney General is answerable for that, because if they made such an effort with Wyoming, and if they made such an effort with GFA, and for GFA they said it was in the public interest. So in 24 hours, buildings were earmarked, bank accounts were frozen, and I know this because I was part of that case.
Very well. Because you raised the issue of legislation, I'm sure that perhaps, and I'm assuming that you might have identified some loopholes in our current laws that do not deal with this specifically. And so what form are you looking at, and what form of, and how should the legislation, which areas should the legislation tackle? Which is not provided already for in our current laws?
Yes. So basically, what's basically happening in our current laws is that there's a lot of laws, but a lot of departments are making excuses as to why they didn't act. For instance, SEC will be like, oh, we didn't have enforcement powers. And another department will be like, well, our regulations stopped somewhere. All of them, respectfully, were wrong, because they could have just walked up to the Attorney General's department and said this is in public interest.
So Ms. Clinton, I think that we should be getting them to work, if in your estimation they are not working, rather than
yes, but the way to
legislating
get them to work
again.
As well is to identify that this is a coordinated effort. For instance, for Ponzi schemes, money moves very fast. You have to identify high interest rates or high returns, etc., is a big flag, and things like that. So if these departments continuously Ponzi schemes have been going on for 20 years. Very few people get held to account. So if all these key government departments keep making excuses, we can enshrine it in law and tell them how all of them are supposed to coordinate together. And then furthermore, just issue protocols that are very specific in terms of, if there is enough of a suspicion, you don't issue warnings. You go for a quick ex parte injunction, and then all departments can figure out exactly what's going on with that company. So basically, what I'm saying in my petition is the Attorney General's Department is more than empowered for ex parte injunctions, for tracing assets internationally and locally, etc. But everybody's kind of like not acting, basically. And they're all saying, well, I didn't know I was supposed to act. I didn't know I was supposed to act. And so if you enshrine it in legislature and you tell them how they're supposed to coordinate, maybe we wouldn't have such a financial bloodbath in future. But in my estimation, it was very negligent for us to see someone move from Kaswa, to Chazako and buy a plane, and all these departments somehow in between that weren't able to figure out what was going on.
All right, Madam Clinton, we do know that the case is in court, but I'm curious to know what's the situation with your clients after all these months of legal tussle?
Okay. The situation with my clients right now is that they've been able to get very specific judgments against the directors and against the companies as well. But the problem we face is that if it took government departments so long to freeze assets, there isn't much to share. And so standard protocol globally is that, men's goals should have just been shut down within 24 hours with an ex parte injunction, and they shouldn't have been the ones who distributed the money. And so that's where the negligence aspect comes in. So although we secure judgments, if there isn't enough in the kitty because, departments just took too long to cull assets, that is something that the courts are going to explore. And whilst the courts are exploring that, my petition to the Speaker of Parliament is to kind of look at a way forward, because if this has been going on for 20 years in terms of the rise and trend of Ponzi schemes in Ghana, we're in 2021, and there has to be some sort of coordinated response, policy-wise, legislation-wise, and with the Attorney General to just really utilize their powers, essentially.
All right.
And so that's what this petition is about.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. That's Amanda Clinton. Amanda Clinton is lawyer of some customers of gold dealership firm Men's Gold. Ernest, we have some sad news.
Yes, and it's on road safety. 10 people have died, with more than 20 others currently battling for their lives at the Wale Municipal Hospital following a ghastly motor accident in the northeast region. The accident, which occurred Tuesday morning, involved a commercial vehicle with registration number GT763919, which ran into the Nasia Bridge at Wale. The Garo-bound bus was loaded with 45 passengers who were traveling from Kumasi. Tanko has been following this on our reports.
Still not clear what caused the accident, but while some passengers are accusing the driver of sleep driving, the driver insists he was crossed by a herd of roaming cattle. All of a sudden, I saw a cattle crossing the road, and I applied the bridge and lost control, and the vehicle ran into the bridge. Eyewitnesses say the vehicle rammed into the Nasia Bridge and somersaulted multiple times before landing in the middle of the road.
The thing is happened that the ladies tell us that the driver is sleeping on. So the time he said the driver is sleeping, in few minutes, then it happened. So for that time, some drivers passing by, they say that the driver came and passed, they stopped dropping some people, then he passed. Then the driver confirmed that the driver is sleeping. He's dazing. And go and they say, oh, for this one, the driver, it can't go anywhere. Just fuel you. But it come. The time I see that, it come, they fall down for me to see them.
At the scene, security and fire service personnel conducting rescue operation were struggling to clear the destroyed vehicle from the road. Joy News also gathered that the accident occurred at about 3 a.m., but the rescue operation delayed as it was hampered by lack of ambulance to carry the victim to the hospital. The situation has caused a massive gridlock on the Tamale-Bolga highway as vehicles traveling on the road have been stuck as personnel are struggling to clear the damaged vehicle. Some of the passengers traveling on the road spoke to Joy News.
From the Upper East region, and I'm traveling to Tamale. That's the northern region. I'm having a case at the court, so I'm supposed to be in the court around 10 a.m. And as of now, an accident has occurred here, and we are standing here. We have been standing here for about 30 minutes now. But others have been standing here for long.
Where?
From Bolga, we're going to Tamale. We came and we heard that there's an accident at the bridge over there. So we have been stuck here for almost 30 minutes now.
So that's Elias Otanko's report, as you heard him say, 10 people have died, and then many more are still battling for their lives
Very
at the
sad.
Wale Wale hospital. Eliasu joins us on the line now. Eliasu, what's the latest on this situation? Hello, Eliasu. If you can hear me, what's the latest on the situation?
Yes, Araba, I can hear you. Currently at the Wale Wale emergency ward, the hospital in here, and earlier on we had about 18 people being treated. Currently, it's just left with 2 persons. One person currently in severe condition. The doctors tell me that they suspect she's suffering from head injuries. There are other 2 young boys who they say they have been treated, and they are now waiting for their relatives to show up for them to allow them to go home. And so what is happening is that they have transferred almost 21 of the victims that they had brought here earlier. They have transferred most of them back to Boko, where they were headed, and some of them are also currently at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. But like you said, it has just been confirmed that 10 persons as we speak are currently dead in this particular accident.
We know that the police is investigating this, but has anyone been arrested at all? The driver?
Not at all. The driver has been disputing the claims that he was sleeping. He said he was crossed by a roaming cattle in the night, and that is why he rammed the vehicle into the bridge. And so nobody has been arrested. Like I said, the security personnel have been able to clear the damaged vehicle from the road, and now vehicular movement has resumed on the highway.
All right, many thanks for that update. Eliasu Tanko is our Northeastern regional correspondent. Well, Ernest, you do know that the National Road Safety Authority has waded into this. It's expressed concern about this particular accident, and its preliminary assessment identified driver fatigue, drunk driving, and others as a possible cause or causes of the accident.
Let's go to the phone lines now. David Osafa Donton is the Director of Planning and Programs and joins us on the line with more on this. So thank you very much, Mr. Donton, for joining us here on Newsnight. So you have done an assessment and you indicate driver fatigue and drunk driving. As an authority, what have you been able to do? Well, let's start with the accident, actually. What other issues have you identified as possible causes of this accident?
Let me say good evening to you, and good evening to all our cherished listeners. It's very unfortunate we have gotten the news. Very, very unfortunate indeed. And the account given by your reporter is exactly the same story that we have. We are still on ground. We are consulting and engaging to come up with the circumstances that led to the crash. I believe in the course of the week, we will identify the exact problems and challenges that led to the crash, and then we can discuss further. But now, we have taken a few points as regards some possible causes that are related to speeding, as always the case. The driver fatigue, that means the driver driving while tired, and then also possibly a certain perhaps substance, external substance in the driver's system. But sometimes you find it difficult to understand some of these drivers. When you have a very good road and you have a very good condition and they follow the rules and regulations. If you listen to the people, some of the people, the passengers who are alive and some eyewitnesses, I think it points to driver error. And so we are looking at it. We are looking at it.
I know the authority has proposed a solution to address the issue of sleep driving, and your proposal is that for long journeys especially, you should have at least 2 drivers. There should be a spare driver. What do you know in this incident? Was that complied with?
Yes, you know that in the past number of months, all the way from last year, later part of last year, we together we partnered with Multimedia, yourselves, and we're rolling and still rolling the Arrive Alive campaign And under the Araba Live campaign, we are speaking against misbehavior on the part of road users, especially our drivers. And we have discussed thoroughly and over again the issue about fatigue. And we have indicated the signs of fatigue, all the issues that contribute to fatigue, and what we can all do to eliminate it. I think that much as we speak to people, engage and on radio, on TV, on the outreaches and all that, it still means that there is a gap. And so we were expecting the transport operators in particular to take that responsibility of ensuring that drivers are well conditioned to drive long distances. And even beyond that, we said let us break the drive so that two drivers will run a long distance journey. I think that some are doing it and some are not doing. Now, if you fail to do, the problem we have is that we have not put in a mechanism to enforce or ensure compliance. And that is the next stage that we're going to go this year.
And when you say that that's the next stage, how exactly are you going to implement that and
Yes.
to ensure that people comply?
Exactly. One mechanism is that we are involving the police, because it is by law required that when it comes to road traffic regulation, it is the police that should enforce the law. Now, first of all, we are introducing what we call logbooks. And then logbooks the driver will indicate where he took off from the terminal, and so where he did the change or the transfer for himself to another driver. We are also letting the transport operators themselves do the monitoring. And beyond that, we are looking into the future, bringing electronic systems. We call something a tachograph. Tachograph is a mechanism that you can install in the vehicle in a manner that the vehicle can be tracked as it moves along the journey. And you can stop that vehicle at any point in time, pull out a certain the device, and check the driver's movement, where he rested, where he stopped, the speed he was running, and all that. So I think that may be a bit of a medium to long term. But we are considering using the logbook for now, so that it can be inspected at every point in time when the police should come across the driver at anywhere.
How soon are you rolling that out?
Particular exercise started a couple of years ago. But I think that the transport operators have not bought fully into the concept. But it's a very useful concept for now. Before we roll on the electronic, unfortunately, we are not getting the transport operators to buy fully into the concept and the idea, because there are no sanctioning mechanisms. And that is why we have incorporated into our LI, the act that established the National Road Safety Authority, has provided that we develop an LI for passing by Parliament. The LI was completed, but we could not bring it to Parliament. It is one of the things we are doing this year for Parliament to pass that LI, and then we can apply the sanctions as provided by the LI. And I think that is what has actually delayed the full implementation of this enforcement mechanism.
All right, Mr. Adontin, we'll leave it here because of time. Thank you very much. And that's the Director of Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority, David Osafo Adontin. You're listening to Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. We're taking a break for business, but still ahead in the bulletin.
Former Speaker of Parliament Edward Doajahu reveals the late Jerry Rawlings was unhappy with some developments after handing over power to John Kufuor. But what were those issues?
He invited me to his house and went around the vehicles and said that, is this a bulletproof car?
More as Ghana prepares to send home the former president tomorrow.
And it's now time for business. Charles Aito is here. Hello, Charles.
Hello, Ernest. So coming up in business, customs officials on high alert at all ports to reduce the surge in COVID-19 cases. Also, IMF projects economy to grow at 4% this year. We have details. Plus, Director of ISA wants the State Interest and Governance Authority to crack the whip on state-owned enterprises causing financial loss to the state. Business on Newsnight is brought to you by MT, and welcome to a new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all office essential. And First National Bank, we are the bank that understands your business. First National Bank, how can we help you?
Our 130-year journey at Allianz has seen our operations growing to cover over 92 million Allianz customers in over 70 countries worldwide. Allianz Life Insurance Ghana, a subsidiary of Allianz Group, has put together a wide range of insurance packages to suit the pockets of every Ghanaian individual, family, group, corporate body, as well as their employees. Kindly call us on 030-2267-892 or 059-144-9686 or visit our website www.allianz-gh.com for more enquiries. Allianz Life, we secure your future.
Look at you, the big boss.
You know they here.
You know they fear who?
Until somebody says, I will tell your mother.
That's why we say wear a mask or else.
We will call your mother.
Hey, why are you disgracing me? Why your mask?
Wear it for her. Wear it for me everywhere you go. MTN.
Well, you're welcome to Business on Newsnight. I'm Charles Aite. Ghana's economy is projected to grow at a rate of about 4% this year. That's according to the International Monetary Fund's latest updated World Economic Outlook report. Now, this is consistent with Moody's 4% and Fitch Solutions' 4.8% projections. According to the fund, Ghana's growth rate will be higher than Sub-Saharan Africa regional average of 3.2%. Meanwhile, amid exceptional uncertainty, the Bretton Woods institution says that the global economy is projected to grow at a 5.5% rate this year and as well 4.2% next year. This year's forecast is revised up by 0.3 percentage points, reflecting expectations of a possible vaccine strengthening economic activity later in the year. Gita Kopinak is the chief economist at the IMF.
Assuming the pandemic fades in the second half of 2020 and that policy actions taken around the world are effective in preventing widespread firm bankruptcies, extended job losses, and system-wide financial strains, we project global growth in 2021 to rebound to 5.8%. Now, this recovery in 2021 is only partial, as the level of economic activity is projected to remain below the level we had projected for 2021 before the virus hit. The cumulative loss to global GDP over 2020 and 2021 from the pandemic crisis could be around $9 trillion, greater than the economies of Japan and Germany combined.
Well, you heard Gita Kopinter, the chief economist at the International Monetary Fund. The director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte, wants the State Interest and Governance Authority, SIGA, to crack the whip on state-owned enterprises that have become a drain on the state coffers. Several SOEs have failed to generate returns for many years now, not to talk about the payment of dividends to government. They instead depend on government for survival. But Professor Peter Korte, who is an economist, wants this practice to stop to free monies for other developmental projects.
If you talk about the state-owned enterprises, there are a lot of state-owned businesses that should be making profits and be putting money into government kitty. Unfortunately, they are rather a drain on the national purse. That is why the setting up of SIGA, the state interest and governance and accountability that have been set up, should be up and do the needful to ensure that state-owned enterprises work efficiently. And I know the CEO is quite an active person. He will act and doing and ensure that state-owned enterprises not just become a drain on the national kitty, but rather generate profit for our economy, generate profit for government.
And that was Professor Peter Korte there. customs officials at the port, the air, and as well the land ports have been on high alert to prevent further surge in COVID-19 cases from the various entry points. This is done through the migration of many port inspection activity onto digital platforms. Speaking at the International Customs Day celebration in Accra, the chairman of the Implementation Committee for ICAMS, Assistant Commissioner Manu disclosed that the Commission is deploying advanced technology to ensure physical contacts are minimized at the ports.
Is for the second phase of the deployment is to ensure that we can introduce the authorized economic operators module, which gives priority to compliance traders to clear their goods without any customs intervention. We also have in mind to deploy the second phase, what you know as the API, the Advanced Passenger Information System, which is going to be in collaboration with the airport authorities and all other security and stakeholders who operate at the airports to make available information and data on incoming passengers and their cargo so that we can facilitate fast clearance of goods at the airports and also profile passengers who pose high risk in any form or context.
And that was Assistant Commissioner Manu, who is the chairman of the Implementation Committee for ICAMS. Financial analyst and business school lecturer is crediting the recent surge in investor interest in treasury bills and other financial instruments to the stable socio-economic and political environment in the country. Let's listen to him.
If you look at the advantage that African countries are enjoying, which Ghana is part of it, we have a bit more economic activity going on compared to the European world. So as we speak now, if we should have foreign investors who are part of these people who are putting their money in our environment, then I would say that they see more prospect in Africa, especially in Ghana, compared to the other part of the world. And again, looking at the election and how the opposition resorting to the systems to ensure that things are settled. It tells you that yes, Ghana has come to embrace democracy, and obviously money moves to where it can have peace of mind, and that is why I believe that the confidence as far as our economy is concerned has started growing again.
And that's Dr. Lord Mensah, Finance and Economic Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School and in Business on Newsnight. Over to you, Ernest and Araba.
Many thanks, Charles, for bringing us business. And a few of you have been sending us messages on our WhatsApp console. This one says, "Good evening, Ernest. Ex-President Mahama should spare us our ears with his error-ridden petition before the Apex Court. President Nana Akufo-Addo is focused on delivering good governance to the people of Ghana. Please let's observe the COVID-19 safety protocols and stay safe." That's Nana Ikuamwa Boatin in Ablekuma Central.
Okay, and Abdul Aziz Nindo, I hope I pronounced that right, from Tema, says the failure of the NDC to submit witness statement was a deliberate attempt to undermine the order of the court. The Supreme Court shouldn't have accepted this unpardonable act. So that's from Abdul Aziz. Also, please tell Mr. Forson and Men's Gold customers that we will not agree if government spends taxpayers' money on them. The finance minister was right.
And those are some of your messages coming through on Newsnight. And it's now time for sports with Hans Mensah. And when we are back, we'll talk about COVID-19 because the cases are rising very, very, very fast. Hans?
Ghana defender Baba Abdurrahman, he's set to join Greek side PAOK to try to get his career back on track, having spent 6 months with Chelsea's under-23. The 26-year-old arrived at Chelsea in 2015 from Augsburg for an initial fee of £14 million, rising to £22 million with performance-related add-ons, but he's found chances very limited at Stamford Bridge, and a series of knee injuries have hampered the Ghana international, who has played just 26 times for the Blues and has had loan spells at Schalke, Reims and Mallorca. Still on Chelsea, they have appointed former Paris Saint-Germain boss Thomas Tuchel as their new manager on an 18-month contract. The 47-year-old German, who won 2 league titles, also won the French Cup and the French League Cup in his 2.5-year spell in Paris. The new Chelsea boss is set to be permitted to be in the dugout at Stamford Bridge for Wednesday's Premier League meeting against Wolves. So new man in charge, Lampard out. The new name is Thomas Tuchel. That's your sport.
Thank you very much. And MFR Paul should know this. Have you updated her?
Well, I'm sure she's duly informed.
Would you want to try the same question with Araba?
Hi, Araba. I think so.
Yes, I think it's a tradition.
Go ahead.
Araba, which of the London clubs do you support?
I support Manchester United.
Oh my God!
There you go. And off I
she
go.
failed.
I've been compelled to force to support Manchester United.
Okay, we'll bring you the answer.
I'll just leave it there.
I still don't get it. I'll tell you at the end of the show.
All right, but Ernest, let's talk about COVID-19 now, because with the numbers shooting up, opinions are divided on whether government should impose another lockdown. Active cases are now beyond 3,600 and more than 370 people have died so far. The Ghana Medical Association and other health experts are pushing for a lockdown to contain the rising numbers.
There is nothing else which will stem the tide. And I keep hearing, if we don't see the numbers going down, the numbers will not go down until we take decisive measures. From where I sit, I think that the Ghana Health Service, the Ministry of Health, the government is taking these measures. They're just trying to plan them out and roll them out, because it just can't, just appear boom and say lockdown. So I would take these as a herald or a pre-announcement, if I can put it that way. From where I sit, this is my understanding that this is going to happen sooner than later.
This condition is still here with us. It's getting worse. Things are not looking so good. And we have asked that, as you said in the 9-point statement, first emphasizing the fact that the situation is getting alarming. Mm-hmm. We are asking that the government, as a matter of urgency, should try and reimpose some restrictions on mass gatherings.
But an economist is warning against a full lockdown, saying it will slow down the economy. You recall that 2 weeks ago, the 2-week partial lockdown, actually, which was imposed by government in March last year, had several, impacts on the economy. There were several complaints by private businesses who said the lockdown adversely affected their fortunes. Well, the director of the Institute of Statistical and Social and Economic Research, ISA, Professor Peter Korte, says imposition of stricter restrictions may be a better option than a total lockdown.
But if we should go into a lockdown, it's just certainly going to slow down economic activity. Our growth projections will certainly come down because there's not much production or consumption. That is also likely to affect employment as well as even government's fiscal position. Because, mind you, when we go into a lockdown, there's not much production. Revenue would go down, and government might have to borrow to finance some of this health-related expenditure. So we ought to be careful about this. Then also, the livelihood of the poor. You recall when we went into our 3-week lockdown, there was some agitation. The vulnerable, the poor, they could not stay indoors because they live on a subsistence basis. It's from hand to mouth. And therefore, if you go into a lockdown, for how long and how do we feed them? How do we ensure that their livelihood is not affected?
But how resilient is our economy to absorb the shocks that some of which you've mentioned that may come from imposing the lockdown?
Well, the economy, to some extent, is resilient, but not that much. You saw agriculture, for instance. When we went into a lockdown, there wasn't a significant increase in import of food and other items. We were able to manage food production, and even consumption wasn't a problem. There were no shortages of many commodities. But then, to some extent, it depends on how long you go into a lockdown. If it extends beyond a certain period, then we might likely face some challenges.
So that's Director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Korte. Now, if you're still not convinced that wearing your mask could save you, listen to this.
It's not easy. We are also breaking our backs. So please, Ghana, let's try and max up.
That's Sewa Koto. She's a critical care nurse at the Ga East Hospital, who says the team of doctors and nurses at the ICU are getting overwhelmed by the rising cases of COVID-19. Sewa has been speaking to my colleague Matilda Gavi, and she says caring for COVID-19 patients requires painstaking and difficult procedures, which can subject the entire healthcare system to serious stress.
It's a room of excited critical nurses at the Ga East Hospital. 4 of them are getting ready to enter the ICU. Sewa Akoto is getting ready for the day's task. Inside the changing room, she is helped by other colleagues to don PPE. Wearing these protective things alone can take about 10 minutes. It's a careful, thorough process that largely saves the frontline workers from getting infected. Sewa heads for the high dependency unit. Being in this room is like hanging off a cliff. The fear of death, pain, and anxiety fill every inch of this room. There are 4 patients in dire need of help from Sewa and her colleagues. It is Sewa's turn for the 4 days, 12-hour shift. A shift that becomes strenuous when you are dealing with COVID-19. The more critically ill the patient is, the closer nurses cooperate with doctors in providing life support treatments.
Most of them, you manage their symptoms as they come. Some come with comorbidities like diabetes and other things, so you try to manage those conditions as well.
Sewa moves from one patient to the other, checking monitors. Occasionally, she speaks to the patients, who only nod or give thumbs up as response, since they are all on ventilators. 2 of her patients are restless. 1 is gasping for air. Another nurse reaches out to one of the patients and carefully adjusts the pillows, while 2 other nurses make a dash for the oxygen cylinders. The nurses leave nothing to chance, as one of them, for close to 20 minutes, holds an oxygen mask to the face of a patient while the oxygen is being fixed.
We are overwhelmed with the rise of COVID cases now.
Help by masking up so the cases can be reduced.
Let's try and observe the safety protocol. Health workers are overwhelmed now. We are breaking our back, so please try as much as possible to do as you are told.
And that's Matilda Gavi's report on COVID-19. Now, former Speaker of Parliament Edward Dwajau says the late former President Rawlings was deeply hurt and unhappy with accusations he imported bulletproof vehicles into the country in 2002 during the administration of the former President John Kufuor. According to him, the late president felt the story about the vehicles was meant to whip up public sentiment against him. Mr. Ajao spoke to my colleague Elton Brobe at the Accra International Conference Center today when he paid his last respect to the former president.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our contention that Mr. Kenoforiata, between the period of 2017 and 2020.
Many people do not know the concept of the Office of Special Prosecutor was introduced by President Rawlings during the PNDC time. And I was once on secondment from the Attorney General's Department as Assistant Special Prosecutor in charge of the Brong-Ahafo region. It was President Rawlings who built the capacity for us. And how many properties have we seen about him? Can you see? Can you say about him? How many foreign accounts has the man got? How many material things has he got anywhere? And that's the man we are mourning today.
Can the current political actors learn from his legacy?
Well, probity and accountability. Indeed, integrity. Or whether in life or in death, because of his integrity, nothing else will matter. His legacy will live on. Even people who condemn him, people who betrayed him, some of them are falling on themselves to mourn him now. And that's the man we are mourning today. I have my encounter with him more when he left office, especially during the Kufuor years. And I learned a lot from him during those periods. You remember the bulletproof car. You remember, if you check your records, I was the one who who spoke to the media on the matter. He invited me to his house and went around the vehicles and said that, is this a bulletproof car?
And so that's former Speaker of Parliament Edward Do Ajawo there. And of course tomorrow, the late former president goes home. The state funeral is at the Independence Square
in Accra.
And everything will be live on Joy News on Joy 99.7 FM. You want to stay with us?
Of course, tomorrow too, we'll have that Joy News documentary by Emefa Apawu and Kweku Owusu-Pepra, Jerry John Rawlings, the story of greatness, the phenomenal life of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings on the Joy News channel at 6 p.m. Remember to tune in.
So may so rest in peace. That's our show for tonight. My name is Ernest Manu.
And I'm Araba Koomson.
For Pepsodent,